Despite the concerns about its development time, Hollow Knight Silksong is still expected to be an amazing video game when it does end up releasing. But here's something I don't think enough people are considering. Will Hollow Knight Silksong be better than the original Hollow Knight? Or better yet, is it even possible? It's no secret that this indie metroidvania from 2017 is a masterpiece. Really, the only thing that holds gamers back from all collectively enjoying it is its difficulty, but in the grand scheme of things, this is a generational video game. I personally don't think it's 100% perfection, but the fact that we even have to debate that proves how much of a masterpiece the game is. And with a game as good as this, it puts a ton of pressure on the sequel. Hollow Knight Silksong is attempting the impossible, that is, to be better than the original Hollow Knight. So do I think this game can be an improvement? And do I think it actually will be? That's what we'll be answering today. Let's jump right in. Like I said, Hollow Knight was a masterpiece of a game, and it's almost perfection. But like I also said, I don't think it's entirely flawless. Just some minor things like certain bosses not being balanced very well, some of the charms just being absolutely horrible. I mean, things like this are gonna exist in every game. So considering that the game does have some nitpicky issues here and there, that means there is a reality where Hollow Knight Silksong is better in that regard. So let's say, hypothetically, for the sake of the argument, Hollow Knight Silksong has better enemy balancing and abilities that are equally useful. If this game actually managed to improve upon the minor mistakes made in the original game without adding any new mistakes, there you have it. Hollow Knight Silksong could hypothetically improve upon some of the nitpicky issues of the first game. The problem is how unlikely that is. So while it's true that Silksong could hypothetically be better than Hollow Knight, what's the true probability of that happening? You might be saying that Team Cherry as a developing team is much more experienced than they were when they made the first game, which would be true. I mentioned a minute ago that if Silksong can fix the issues of the first game while not adding any issues to the game, it will be better. But here's the thing, Silksong will add new issues, just like every game does. I'm basically saying that even if Silksong fixes issues from the first Hollow Knight, it's inevitable that the game will accidentally add brand new issues. That's just how video games work. There's always going to be things that should have been different. That's how Metroidvanias have always been, and that's how every other video game genre is. For example, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild had pretty bad boss fights, especially the final boss. Goodness. When Tears of the Kingdom came out last year, its bosses were awesome in comparison, but the game ended up adding new issues to the point where it's debatable on whether or not it's actually an improvement, even with the bigger map. The good thing about Silksong is it will be an entirely new map, which gives the game a higher ceiling but also a lower floor. The point is that even if this game improves on certain aspects, there's bound to be some issues. Now, I'm not saying the game is going to be bad. I don't think anybody in their right mind would argue that. What I'm saying is this game is trying to improve upon the best Metroidvania of all time. It's going to be difficult. And here's a problem a lot of people have been voicing lately. How will playing as Hornet feel? This sounds like a dumb question. The answer would be the same way the Vessel creature felt to control. But the thing about Hornet is she's taller and has a, let's say, more unique shape, which could lead to an annoying hitbox. Playing as Hornet might end up just being straight up less ideal. Playing as the Vessel creature was amazing. There was never a point in that game where you felt out of control. The Vessel was responsive, agile, and had a fair hitbox. He was the perfect size for the game. And while Hornet will be fun to play as, I doubt she will be just as fun to control as the protagonist from the first game. Hornet is one of the coolest characters in this universe, so I'm glad she's the main protagonist in this game, but I do doubt her moveset will top the Vessel protagonist, but maybe I'm wrong. However, I believe there is one way that Silksong can actually be better than the original Hollow Knight, and that's more content. Let me explain. If Hollow Knight Silksong is an amazing game like the first game, has a couple issues here and there like the first game, except it has twice the amount of content, I believe that by itself will make the game better. This isn't to say that Hollow Knight doesn't have enough content. I got hundreds of hours out of Hollow Knight. In fact, it took me 120 hours to get all of the achievements on Steam. But if Silksong has more content while being just as objectively good as the original, that makes the game a better product. There is one problem with this thinking, and that's whether or not there's a such thing as too much content. This just boils down to opinions. Some people get overwhelmed if the game takes too long to complete. Others believe there's no such thing as too much to do in a game. I can't say whether or not I'm on a specific side of this aisle or not, but I have said on this channel before that Hollow Knight has the perfect amount of content. Despite that, I'm now of the opinion that having more content while being just as good will make Hollow Knight Silksong a more valuable product. But what do you think? I'm also looking forward to how this game looks visually. From the trailers we've seen so far, the game's art style and overall environment seems to be even better than it was in the first game, so I'm hoping that's the case. Hollow Knight's environment was great, but I do think it could have had more color, especially in the first hour or so of gameplay. It's likely the repetitive color scheme of the first few areas turned a few players off before they could get engaged, resulting in players giving up on the game. Silksong seems to be a lot more vibrant and colorful from the start, so I think it could definitely be an objective improvement in that regard. I'm also hoping this game has even more bosses than the first game, which had 46. It's going to be tough to come up with 50 more unique boss fights though. Basically, in summary, the best way for Silksong to be better is for it to be bigger. And in this case, there is no doubt in my mind that this game will be bigger. But now you might be asking, after all I've said in this video, what are my predictions? Well, let's get into those, shall we? My predictions for Hollow Knight Silksong is that it's going to be on par with the first game. Basically, the game won't be miles better or miles worse, and while people will be able to objectively compare the games, most of the general discourse will be decided based on personal preference. The game will be bigger in scope and will probably get more DLC later down the road, but like I've been saying, it's going to be hard to be better than the best Metroidvania of all time. I do believe in Team Cherry though. I think the best chance this game has at being better is to be larger with the same amount of minor issues here and there. The biggest challenge this game will face is trying to replicate the success of the abilities while simultaneously coming up with new abilities as a replacement, which is why I'm predicting this game's abilities will be a lot less interesting than they were in the first game. They're either going to be too similar to be considered new, or they will be new but they won't be better. I definitely could end up being wrong about this though, because we have seen some fun looking abilities in the trailers. It just seems like every cool Metroidvania ability was already in the first Hollow Knight, so Team Cherry is going to have to really think outside the box for the sake of this game's originality. But you know what? None of this matters if the game doesn't release in the first place. The game has been in development for at least 5 years at this point, and hopefully that means there's a ton of content, but more importantly, I hope the development is going well, because if the game never releases, this discussion was a gigantic waste of time. I am predicting that Hollow Knight Silksong will release in February of 2025. I know that probably wasn't what you wanted to hear, but I just can't imagine a reality where this game releases this year. I hope it does, don't get me wrong, but my job is to be realistic, not hopeful. Okay, that just sounded kind of depressing. Anyway, Hollow Knight Silksong will release on the 24th of February, just in time for the 8th anniversary of the first game. And for my final prediction, I think this game's soundtrack will be very much improved. The first Hollow Knight had a great soundtrack. It was nothing but fully orchestrated ear candy. We've gotten a couple tracks from Silksong's OST revealed already, and I think they sound great. I expect Christopher Larkin's work on Silksong to be even better, and I believe a lot more emotion can be achieved from this game's music in comparison to the original, just based on the setup. Now that I went over my predictions, let's see what some of you guys have to say. I made a community post asking if you think Silksong will be better or worse than the first Hollow Knight, and these are some of the better responses to that question. Also, I hope my voice sounds fine. I'm still recovering from wisdom teeth surgery, and my mouth still feels kind of funny. Mike Knight 2 says, I think it's going to be way better due to a higher budget and a longer development time than the first game. Also, the devs should be more experienced by now. This is a pretty fair and sensible take to have here. The game definitely has a higher budget and more experienced developers, but longer development time can either mean a really good thing or a really bad thing, so we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not ready to say the game will be way better or anything, but the reasons you gave are pretty convincing. Inky Monstrosity says, I'm sure it'll be an improvement in some capacity, whether modest or substantial. Worst case scenario, it's on par with the first game in my eyes, which I'd be pretty fine with, honestly. I definitely agree that worst case scenario, it'll be just as good as the first game. I mean, Team Cherry is way too talented to deliver anything less. ProHuman271 says, I think Silksong will be way better than Hollow Knight, but will not live up to the extreme hype that has been gained over the years. You could definitely say that the game is being overhyped due to the long wait. For someone like me though, I'm expecting the game to be bigger in scope, yet around the same level of greatness as the first game. So I think for me, the game will live up to my expectations no matter what. I do agree that there are some people that are definitely overhyping the game online, but I can't blame them. SD Sunny says, I think it's going to be better than Hollow Knight by far, but it's going to let people down because of how long we have been waiting for it, like in Tears of the Kingdom. I did compare these two franchises earlier as well when I said that Tears of the Kingdom made both improvements and mistakes compared to Breath of the Wild, and how Silksong will almost certainly do the same thing. And yeah, we've been waiting for over a half decade now, so hopefully this game will have a good 150 hours worth of content to enjoy. And lastly, Witherboy5438 says, at the very least, I'm expecting it to be just more Hollow Knight content. I'm hoping it'll be better, but you never truly know. Whether or not it surpasses the original, I'm still playing the hell out of it. I couldn't agree more. Whether the game is better or worse, or somewhere in between, another great Metroidvania is all I need. Anyway, that's about it for reading the comments. There's still a ton of great comments under that post that I didn't get to go over today, but feel free to contribute to the discussion in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think about this discussion? But real quick, before clicking off, I have a question to ask you. Would any of you guys be interested in a video where I rank the top 10 Metroidvanias? I don't know when this video would come out. I still have a few Metroidvanias that I want to play beforehand, but I just wanted to make sure you wanted to see that. Metroidvanias are one of my favorite genres, and I think I'm becoming pretty knowledgeable on them, so this video would be a blast to make. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that, and that's about it. See you next time.